Hi, this is Bob from Hobbyconcepts, and today I'm going to take a look at how to set up and program the FS-i6 radio with the Tamiya MFC03 unit. I've done a video on the MFC01 with this radio, and the programming part is in that video. Today on this video I'm going to show how to plug it in, how to set it up, and all the stick movements that this radio needs to operate the Tamiya MFC03 unit. This is a great combination. It's easy to use, it works fantastic, sounds good, looks good. It's awesome in your truck. So we'll take a look at it. Let's get started. So for the MFC03, I get this question all the time. What's the difference between the MFC01 and the MFC03? Well, the main difference is the MFC03 is the Euro style. It has European engine sounds, and things like the horns and the turn signals operate a little bit differently than the US spec MFC01. So if you're building a King Hauler or a Grand Hauler, you're going to probably use an MFC01, but if you're building a Scania or maybe a Mercedes-Benz, you'll probably use an MFC03. That's the difference. There's a few different wiring strings, and we'll talk about those as we go into them, but the unit itself is the same size, looks the same size horn, same control panel, all the same accessories come with it. The manual's a little bit different just because of the way it hooks up differently, and so we'll kind of go through those. And then today I'm going to use this Flysky FS-i6 radio that's already been programmed and already has a centering left-hand stick. So if you need to know how to program it or how to put the centering device in, I have other videos you can look at to see that. But the way I sell this radio, it's already done. So that's how we're going to use it. We'll go through this step by step as we go, and then later I will show all the stick movements to operate all the features. So right now I'm going to just pop a few of these open, and then we'll come back and take a look at it. So here's our package, our contents of the package with the light strings in it. And there's really three different things. You've got the light harnesses with the LEDs on them, and they're all color-coded. You've got the coupler switch that's also color-coded, and that's designed for the semi-trucks to mount in the coupler to change the amount of power available and to make the coupling and uncoupling sounds. And then there's three cables that have connectors on both ends, and those are the cables that connect from the control panel to the MFC. So the first thing I'm going to do is plug those in. So what I've done here, and I always like to do this to test, is I've plugged in the control panel, and that's quite simple because the cables all are different sizes, so they only plug in one way. Most of the issues that people call me about, these have been plugged in incorrectly. So I'm going to just go through that real quickly. J4 plugs into channel 1, and on a Flysky receiver the negative lead goes out. So the black lead goes out. Now you don't go J4, 5, 6, and 7. It's actually J4 and then J6 goes into channel 2. J5 goes into channel 3, and J7 goes into channel 4. So the MFC fills up the first 4 spots on the receiver, and all the black wires go out. Now let me grab a battery and we'll fire this up. So I plugged a battery in, and now I can fire it up. I've got my transmitter right here and it's turned on. So I'll just turn the unit on. This little 3-position switch needs to be in the middle. So on the MFC03, you heard some clicking. It doesn't start up automatically like the MFC01. You've got to actually move a stick to start it. So all I'm testing here is, does it turn on? Does the sound work? And yes, it does. Now before you can do a whole lot more, you really need to map it, and I'm going to show you the mapping on this unit. So I call this mapping. Tamiya in their MFC03 instructions call it teaching. But it's the same thing. You need to turn on your transmitter and get it started. All the switches need to be in the up position. It has a button right here. So we're just going to turn it on. We'll let it click to start. Then we're just going to push the button down. And we're going to go up to down, right to left, up to down, right to left, and push the button again. We'll hear those clicks again. So now we've taught it the transmitter. They give you a couple other teaching modes, but you really don't need to do those. We're going to hook the shift servo to channel 5 on the receiver. That's just the way I normally hook it up. So now, there's our emergency flashers. You can hear them. There's our engine start. And I'm gonna go through these stick movements later, but I just wanted to get the teaching mode going. Okay, so that's the basics of the hookup. We plugged it in, we got it working. Now it's time to really install it in the truck, and I'll talk about hooking up the lighting. I plugged a couple of lights in just because I want to show something I always get questions about, and that is, there's our emergency flashers. Okay, but now I'm going to move the steering, and you see the steering turn signals don't work. You have to pull this down and then steer. Okay, you pull the stick down and then turn, but if you don't pull it down first, the signals don't work. And that's the way the MFC03 works, but you have to know that. So a lot of people are like, Bob, my turn signals don't work, or they only work sometimes. Well, they work sometimes because you accidentally push the stick down and didn't really think about it, but you do have to push the stick down before you steer if you want the signals to work. So here's an MFC03 properly plugged in. So we have our 3 plugs that go to our control panel. We have all of our wiring plugs in. You'll notice there's a jumper here in J12, and if your truck doesn't have a coupler switch, you can put a jumper in here which will run the truck at full power all the time instead of the reduced power. I like the reduced power because the trucks run slower. But anyway, that's what that jumper's for. And the lights plug in according to the diagram. So there you can see an MFC03 that's all plugged in and ready to go. Now, our steering servo is plugged into the top spot, and we've got a servo plugged into the second spot, and that servo is for the coupler release, motorized legs, or it happens to be in this truck, the dump bed mechanism. On the tow truck, it's a tow truck mechanism, but basically you can plug in a servo type device to that second spot and run it from the radio, and we'll show how to do that when we get to the radio spot. So with the MFC03 all installed, I want to go through the operation because it's quite a bit different than the MFC01. So we'll turn our radio on, we'll turn on the truck, and you'll hear 3 beeps, and the igniters for the diesel. Now, unlike the MFC01, it doesn't automatically start up. You have to flip this switch down. Now, if you flip it down just for a short period of time, you'll get a startup sound without starting, and if you hold it, you'll get the engine start. So that's pretty much how you turn it on. Now you can also shut the engine off remotely by flipping this switch down and pulling this one over and this one down. You can start it back up remotely by repeating that. You'll get the 3 beeps. Flip that switch up and pull that down. So that's how you start it and stop it. The next thing I want to talk about are the turn signals. Now, you can steer this truck and the turn signals don't work. And I often get the question, hey Bob, my turn signals don't work. Yeah, they do, but here's the secret. You have to pull this down before you turn if you want the turn signals to operate. Okay? If you just turn, they don't operate. You pull this down first, and then they operate. So that way you can have the turn signals work or not depending on the situation. So you got to pull it down and then they work. The emergency flashers, flip this down, put that one up and the flashers come on, put it up again and the flashers come off. With this switch down, this down becomes your light switch. So the first one here will turn on the roof lights. I'll show those later. And then you can see the rear lights, also the headlights, and then back off again. So it flips through the various lighting functions as you pull the stick down. On this particular truck, you can also see it's got side lights. And then, this truck is heavy. Our roof lights and our headlights, and then back off. The MFC03 also has a pretty cool additional startup sound, and to do that, when you turn the truck on, just hold this stick in the bottom corner, turn it on, and that sound effect is a guy walking up to the truck, opening the door, putting the key in. And then if you started the truck using that, when you turn it off, you'll hear the reverse. You'll hear him close the door and walk away. The MFC03 has a couple different horn sounds. Our standard horn sound, and notice the engine doesn't have to be running for the horn sound. Flip this down, pull this over, flip it back up, different horn sound. Repeat it, so you can switch back and forth between the horn sounds. Alright, so we'll just talk about running and shifting. So our throttle is here, and you can see I've got the wheels jacked up off the ground, and our shifting is here. So we have a low gear, medium gear, high gear, medium gear, low gear. Now I like always setting up the shifting on this switch. That's the way I showed it. You can also have shifting sounds by moving this back and forth, but the shifting sounds on the MFC03 and the MFC01 are basically pretty poor, so it's just not that big of a deal. Now the MFC03 also has an interesting feature. It has a clutch. So if you hold this stick down while you move it, you can rev the engine up without the truck moving, and you can give it some throttle and let up on this stick, and it'll start moving. And you get good at it, and it gives you a really nice soft start. Okay, the final feature I want to show would be the additional servo operation. And this would be for if you have motorized trailer legs and you have a servo to operate it, or if you have like a dump bed, or on the tow truck if you have the lifter. So to operate that, you flip this switch down, pull that one over, and now this controls our dump bed up and down, or our leg, servo. Now if you pull it all the way, it also does the light functions. So you get good at it, you just move it a little way and then you don't affect the lighting. And to turn it back off, you just flip it over again, and now it just does the lighting functions. Flip it again, and now we can operate our bed. Finally, I'll just talk about this little control panel a little bit. There's 3 buttons here. There's a hazard button. You can push it, turns on the hazard lights. Push it again, it turns them off. The light switching, you push it once, our roof lights go on, twice our marker lights come on, 3 times our headlights come on, 4th time is off. Those 2 functions are really for display. So if you're displaying your truck and you don't want to use your transmitter, you can use those. This, in the up position, shuts off all the engine sounds. You can actually shut the transmitter off, and we can turn our lights on and our hazard lights, and we could have it be on display. Now notice that there's no sound of hazard lights, but the hazard lights are blinking. And so also sometimes I have people say, hey, my MFC doesn't work. I say check to make sure the switch is in the center position, because if it's not in the center position, and now we're getting an alarm because our radio's not on, if it's not in the center position, it won't work. And actually that's a pretty good point. If your transmitter is turned off, you'll get this beeping sound. Okay, that means the MFC is not getting a radio signal. So there we go. That's how to set up a Tamiya MFC03 with this Flysky radio. Again, I didn't show the programming of the radio in this video, but you can go to my Flysky MFC01 video and I go through the programming there. You can also email me and I'll send you a sheet of paper on how to program the radio, and my email's in the description. The MFC03 works nice. It's got that Euro truck sound. In the future I'm going to do a video comparing it to the MFC01. I always get a lot of questions about that. So there you go. Thank you for watching. Give me a like. I really like those likes. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.